And you're listening to Communities Live on Sheffield Live Radio 93.2 FM with me, Susie Casson, and T-Boy, who's in the kitchen. And we're joined in the studio by Ed Bancroft from the Company Theatre Group. Welcome, Ed.
Hello.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
So, first of all, would you tell us a little bit about the company and how you first became involved with them?
The company are an acting group who have been going in Sheffield for, decades. I joined them about 20 years ago. Someone dropped out of a small part in The Crucible and I stepped in, and the rest, as you say, is history.
Fantastic. And the next production is coming up in June. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yes, it's Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. And it's on the 14th to the 17th of June at the University Drama Studio. And it costs about £8.50 a ticket if you book early.
Great. So quite a large cast.
It's got about a cast of about 15.
Wow.
So there's quite a few of us in there.
Great. And what's your role?
I'm the director.
Oh, right. Yeah. So why did the company choose Twelfth Night for your next production?
Well, it's June, it's the summer, and we wanted something that was going to be funny but interesting, with enough time to go to the pub afterwards.
Absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit about the plot of Twelfth Night?
Yes, it's one of Shakespeare's complicated plots. There's this woman who doesn't like this man, and she hides herself from him, and into that circumstance this young girl who decides to dress up as a boy and gets confused. There's lots of love and confusion and mistaken identities, but it all turns out happily in the end.
That's good. So it's a comedy.
It's a comedy, definitely a comedy.
Brilliant. And are there any strong characters in it?
There are a couple of very strong characters. There's Sir Toby Belch, who is a drunkard. And interestingly, we've cast a woman to play this part, Alison, who's going to be brilliant. Very funny already. We've only just started rehearsing. And then there's a character called Malvolio, who's a bit uptight, ambitions above his station, and the rich and powerful people take the mickey out of him. I wonder, does that remind us of anyone?
I can't think. So the company are making some very brave decisions about cross-gender casting, aren't they? The Richard III was played by a female.
That's right. We think we've got quite a lot of brilliant women actors, and we think that they don't get enough opportunity to play the part. So we try and find ways to encourage what we call genderblind casting, so that we put women into male parts and men into women's parts if they're the appropriate people for the role. And it works out that you get very interesting dynamics between people.
Great.
And it's a great way of utilising all the young women in the cast.
Yeah, and it sort of adds a whole new slant to everything.
Oh, it does. It creates a different idea and increases the fun, I think.
Yeah, lovely. So you said you've just started rehearsals. How do you actually go about casting a play like that?
Well, I always start with a workshop. So we play around with different characters and the actors playing different parts, and then we have to try and match people so that you get a unified feeling to the cast. I think that the director's job is to make a safe space for people to play in, and then create an atmosphere where we can take risks, and that's where the fun comes in. I don't think we had a rehearsal yet where we haven't fallen about with laughter at some point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, when we go to see a play, we forget how much work's involved, don't we? There's really a lot of weeks of hard work, isn't there?
We rehearse for about 2 months before we put on a performance, and that's usually 3 nights a week. We spend about 2 hours at a session. Some of that will be improvisation, working on characters, developing with Shakespeare, understanding what the language means, because it's 400 years old and it does need a bit of interpretation, especially for the audience to get the jokes.
Yes. Great. And you're performing Twelfth Night at the University Drama Studio. Can you tell us a bit about what that's like?
It's a converted church. It's been there for well, in my living memory, forever. It's a brilliant little theatre with all the facilities of a professional theatre. It's got some really lovely comfy seats because it had a refurbishment recently, and it's such a nice place to work, very intimate.
Yeah, lovely. So, as you say, you've only just begun rehearsals, but so far, what have you found most challenging about directing Twelfth Night?
It's trying to get that atmosphere where people will take risks, and that's partly why we're laughing so much, is because we're taking risks and making mistakes, and from those mistakes learning new things about the characters. So the most difficult part will be making sure that we all understand the language, and that always takes a few moments out of every rehearsal where we talk about what does that actually mean.
And what do you enjoy most about being a director?
It's watching people develop their idea of the character. There are no right answers. There are always just choices that people make. And as we rehearse, you see sort of people taking interesting choices and then making the character their own. And it's very exciting to watch. It's nice to watch the performance at the end, but as a director, I get to see the growth of the characters through the rehearsal process.
Yeah, wonderful. And Twelfth Night, obviously by Shakespeare. Why do you think Shakespeare's plays remain so popular?
I think fundamentally Shakespeare has a relevance about what human life is like. And even though he was writing 400 years ago, those passions of love and anger and frustration and ambition and all the sort of like the things that motivate us today are still there. And I think a good production of a Shakespeare production will find the bit that's really relevant to today.
Yeah, great. So it's a Shakespearean comedy on in June. What would you say to someone who's contemplating coming along to see Twelfth Night, who perhaps hasn't seen much Shakespeare before?
Well, it's going to be very funny, it's going to be very silly, but it's also going to have that underlying feeling of romance. It's a perfect date night.
Perfect combination. Lovely. So can you remind us how people can find out more?
There's a Facebook page for the company, and there's also the website that the company use. If you put in the company Sheffield into a search engine, you'll find it very easily.
Fantastic. And it's June the 14th to the 17th.
That's correct.
So a lot of work ahead.
A lot of work, but